Are you thinking about moving to Venice or Sarasota, but you're not sure which one's best for you?
Well, they're both coastal cities with a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences, and we're going to cover them all, and we're getting started right now.
So a quick overview, Venice is a smaller coastal city. It is known for its very historic and very walkable downtown. And Sarasota, on the other hand, it's a bigger city. It is coastal, but it does feel like a much bigger city, not overwhelmingly big, and it has a ton of options for downtowns, shopping, culture, different types of cuisines as well.
And both of them, I think we should note, are growing pretty quickly at the time of filming this.
So let's talk pros and cons. For Venice, pro number one is that it is more affordable than Sarasota, and that is, again, because it is a smaller city than Sarasota.
Yeah, generally for about a similar size home, you can maybe expect to save about 5 to 10, maybe up to 15% off, the same size home in Sarasota. And with that also means probably lower property taxes as well. So that's a pretty big win.
Pro number two is that there's a lot less traffic and crowds compared to Sarasota. Venice is a much smaller city and it's not as touristy as Sarasota, although a lot of people have been finding out about Venice lately. And
because of all those realtors making channels on YouTube about
But overall, I would say it is still quite smaller and a lot less traffic and people.
And just to be clear, during the winter months, it does get busier and a little bit more congested in areas, but definitely not quite those big city type backups that you can experience in parts of Sarasota, which, by the way, we do serve both the areas. If you are looking to buy or sell in either of the areas, we've helped a lot of people move to the areas and we would love to help you as well.
Call or text anytime, 941-221-1897.
Pro number two, which Haiti mentioned a little bit ago, but we'll get into a little more detail here, which is the charming downtown, our historic downtown. So it stands out as very unique in Florida as a whole. Just actually in the universe, I would say it stands out as unique. It's got such a cool vibe with Northern Italian architecture, lots of shops and restaurants, a trail that you can walk all the way to the beach. It's about a mile, maybe give or take, walk right to the beach that connects, and just magical. We've heard a lot of people describe it as magical after their first time seeing it, and they're just like, yep, I want to move there.
Yes, and it is a very walkable area as well. Doing the walk from downtown Venice all the way to the beach, totally recommend if you're in the area. That was our first time actually that we visited Venice. That was one of the things that we did, and we just remember falling in love with Venice because of that.
And one other thing we should note, right on the edge of that downtown and next to the trail is a whole bunch of like sport courts. So you got like tennis, pickleball, basketball courts. There's like a wall for handball or racquetball. So, and shuffle puck as well. So it's just the whole plan of the whole area is really well thought out and super unique, and just kind of gives you a nice central hub for everyone to have something to do, whether that's eating, beaching it up, sporting it up,
going for a walk.
Yeah.
There's also a splash pad in the downtown for little kids and also a playground.
And live music is pretty common in the gazebo in the downtown area there as well. So they've really got something for everyone, and no matter what you're looking to do for the day, you could probably find something in downtown Venice.
Pro number three is if you're looking to retire, Venice, it's a great area for you because it is a slower pace way of living here in Venice. There is a lot of retirees actually, and a lot of snowbirds that come down from the north and Canada as well for the winter months because they are trying to escape the winters. And it is a great area if you are looking to either become a snowbird or retire too.
And on top of that, there's a lot of 55 plus community options, lots of condos on Venice Island, so you could be really close to that downtown, which would be super, super cool. I'm kind of jealous. And on top of that, even just outside of the Venice Island area, there's a lot of 55 plus communities and just a really nice, well-maintained city with a good pace. Again, it gets a little busier in the winter months, but in a way that kind of gives the city a nice energy too, and kind of a good vibe, because you just see like, wow, this is where the people want to be. And you can see why once you're here, because it's just got it's a really good vibe. It's definitely relaxed and just really, really pleasant and well maintained.
Pro number four is our beautiful beaches. We have a lot of different beaches to pick from depending on what you're in the mood for. We have Venice Beach if you just want to, relax and feel more like you're a tourist in the area. That's a great beach to go to. Casperton Beach if you're more into shelling and shark tooth hunting. It's also a great beach for that. And we're also known as the shark tooth capital of the world because there's a ton of prehistoric shark teeth that you can actually find.
And actually, shout out to Paul, who used our real estate team to buy a home, and he sent her a picture of a shark tooth he found that was like the size of the palm of his.
We'll insert the photo here.
Yeah, and we've been living in Venice for 5-ish years now, and like the biggest we've seen is this. And so good job, Paul.
Yes.
So yeah, you can find some pretty cool shark teeth, literally megalodon prehistoric shark teeth, like just huge. Like you can't fathom the size of these shark teeth. It's insane. So that's a pretty cool thing. Also, we got the dog beach where you can have your dog off the leash, which is not very common in Florida at all. So that's a nice perk. And then Sharky's on the Pier is got like a tiki hut and a fishing pier where you can fish without a license. And on top of that, there's a beach right there as well. So kind of cool. You can get some tropical drinks or get some food and hang out on the beach for a while. Really, really cool vibe there. And one other thing we should note, definitely some pretty big differences between our beaches, and we'll talk about the beaches in Sarasota, but ours generally have a little bit more of a abrupt drop off. You know, you get into the water a little bit and it's going to drop down pretty quick, and then it flattens out, but you're going to get down to waist height pretty quick.
And now for the cons, there
is none.
Is
We're biased because we live in Venice.
Yes. There's a few cons, but the pros, in my opinion, win. So there is fewer cultural and entertainment options. And because of this, a lot of times people might look at Venice as being a little bit boring or that there is nothing to do. It just depends on, you know, what your lifestyle looks like, what you want it to look like going forward. And if you are more like into the clubbing scene, then yes, Venice might look a little bit, you know, boring to you. But if you're looking more into like festivals, we have lots of different kinds of festivals, live music in the downtown area, and restaurants, lots of different restaurants and shops as well.
Yeah, and like outdoors type things, parks, things along those lines. And just to not like make it sound like we don't have, like we have the Venice Theater, which is one of the biggest theaters for a small city in all the United States. You know, so there's different things like that. There's lots of art and murals throughout the downtown, KMI historic building, you know, with some history of the Venice area. So there's lots of cool things to check out, especially it would take a good 3-4 years and really digging in of living here and digging into those things to really do everything and feel like, okay, I've seen that. So keep that in mind, you know, when we're talking about fewer options. It doesn't mean like that there's not any options.
And the Venice Island as well has a lot of different smaller parks that you can just go and hang out and, you know, have a picnic or something like that. There's lots of that in the Venice Island. And we have a lot of different parks throughout Venice for hiking, just walking, and just to enjoy the nature.
Yeah, and one other thing, back to kind of blending entertainment and parks. There's some parks too where like you can walk around the park and there'll be signs talking about the history of some of the important things in Venice. So that's kind of a neat thing to kind of give you a little entertaining walk. And then we have another one called West Blaylock Park, which has a bunch of different kinds of trees and, you know, vegetation from all over the world that survives well in warmer climates, of course. And it'll have signs kind of telling you where it's from, what kind of, you know, how much water it needs, how much sunlight, all those kinds of things. So if you're into that kind of stuff too, definitely some entertainment on that side of things.
Also the drum circle every
Thursday, I believe.
Yeah, before sunset.
It's been a while since we went.
It starts before sunset, but that's a pretty cool thing to do if, you know, if you just want to go to the beach and enjoy some drums. It's a really cool thing to do.
Con number 2, if you are of the working age and you need to make that money, there's a little bit less of a market for jobs in Venice, just because a lot of it is service oriented. Again, there's a lot of retirees that come here down in the winter as snowbirds or live here full time. So there's a lot of services that, you know, need to be there to give them something to do, you know, restaurants, shopping, the entertainment type stuff that we do have as well. So most of the jobs are kind of revolve around those industries, as well as like fishing, boating, tourism, things like that.
Also healthcare and education would be another one, but we don't have a lot of, like, Venice is not a hub for, like, you know, big tech companies, or if you're more into like corporations or you're, you know, you want to find a job in an office, that's a little more difficult to find unless you get lucky and find a job like at a bank or something like that. But yeah, most of your jobs are going to be either service related or in the medical field. And
also one other one that's a good one would be, of course, construction. I mean, with the way that the area is expanding between construction, remodeling, you know, plumbing, HVAC, anything along the services on that side of things as well. A lot of opportunities for that.
The next con is we do have fewer dining options. We have a lot of restaurants that are maybe Italian, a few that are Thai, a couple Indian restaurants, Mexican restaurants.
One Indian, I think.
So it's very limited. Maybe we have 1 or 2 of each, and lots of Italian, a few Mexican restaurants. So it's not
We do have that new Korean place now too. Is it Korean? Yeah, that we went to. That was really good.
Poke, the Poke one, or
No, well, and we got Poke now too, but also the Korean, the pho. We always used to call it pho, but I guess it's pho. We just found out recently, PHO. But yeah, we tried that too. So we're starting to get a little more.
Yes, a little more different kinds of cuisines, which we enjoy going out to eat.
Yes, but don't get us wrong. Like Venice is a great food scene. Like it's just, you're like Haiti said, you're talking more Italian, American, Southern, stuff like that. There's going to be a lot of options for that, and some really good ones. Really good ones. But if you want like, more different types of cultures, cuisines, you might not have any options, or you're just going to maybe have one or two.
Yes, and we also have that Caribbean small restaurant on
the Suncoast Cafe.
Yes.
Yeah, Suncoast Cafe is great in the airport.
It's a small restaurant, but it's really, really good one. So recommend it.
And Chinese, and Japanese a fair amount, but there's quite a bit of Chinese throughout the area too. Not to give you the wrong impression that we don't have anything.
And now for the pros and cons of Sarasota.
Well, pro number one is if you are into the arts and entertainment scene, Sarasota does really, really well with this. They got the opera, they got the Van Wezel Performing Arts Center, they've got like just sculptures, and the architecture throughout downtown Sarasota and murals and things like that is great. Like again, like we said, like Venice does have some murals and things like that, but don't get me wrong, Sarasota kind of blows it out of the water in terms of like architecture and sculptures. And like, I just love the vibe of walking around there, and just, we've seen it plenty, but
it's always interesting to see it, even if you have seen it already multiple times. It's always like, oh wow, I didn't remember that was here, just because of all the different sculptures that you'll find throughout the downtown.
Yeah, and I just think the vibe of the city as a whole definitely embraces a lot of that, arts and culture and entertainment side of things. So, and with it being a bigger city on the entertainment side of things too, there is a little bit more of that kind of nightlife vibe if you want a little bit more of that clubbing scene. So, being in a more medium-sized city, which I love their downtown because it's got like almost a big city feel, but it's extremely walkable and doesn't feel overwhelming.
And it's easy to drive in as well.
Yes, exactly.
It doesn't feel like a big city downtown where you don't want to drive and you want to like park down the road and walk to the downtown. Nothing like that. So that's great about Sarasota.
Yeah, and I think that really invites you to come enjoy the area. And also on that note, it is a little bit more entertainment focused than your typical big-ish city downtown. A lot of times there's going to be lots of professional buildings and offices, and there is that in downtown Sarasota as well, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely geared more towards restaurants, shopping, things like that.
Yes, lots of coffee shops as well, and there are a lot of offices as well. And we got a little ahead of ourselves with the second pro, but second pro is the lively downtown and everything that we just mentioned.
Yeah, and I guess to elaborate on that a little more, we'll expand on it, I guess, is the other pro with Sarasota is you've got different downtowns to pick from. Because you also have Siesta Key Beaches, Siesta Key Village, and that's a really cool, more tropical, islandly feeling downtown.
And also St. Armand's Circle, which is a little more upscale, but it's a pretty cool area to just walk around or go shopping or go grab a bite to eat. It's a great area for just walking and hanging out for the day.
To me, it feels a lot like if you took Venice's downtown and put it in a circle that you can walk around, and with some little offshoots. It's a little bit different vibe, but it's very similarities to it as well. And then also on top of that, just outside the edge of Sarasota, Lakewood Ranch, you got their downtown. And then also technically a Lakewood Ranch downtown of Waterside Place. Those are definitely got some unique vibes. And I guess since we're on that note, we should kind of mention Welland Park when we're talking Venice, because that is technically Northport. Venice addresses for the homes. You don't need to tell us in the comments that it's not actually Venice, but point being that it's a very accessible, just like Lakewood Ranch, for Sarasota. Venice has Welland Park's downtown very accessible as well, which has a much different vibe.
Pro number 3 for Sarasota is their strong job market. Now here you have a lot more options in finance, tourism as well, but a little less, I would say. Even though Siesta Key, it's one of the number 1 rated beaches in the continental United States.
Depending on the year.
Yeah, but there is a lot more job options in Sarasota as compared to Venice.
Yeah, definitely a little bit more, office type opportunities and things like that out there, and a little bit into the tech sector and things like that. And that just comes with being in a bigger city and a growing city as well. I mean, that's one thing, coming back to the downtown again, you can definitely see the difference in the way the skyline is starting to raise, and there's more big buildings in the area. And that definitely, breeds to, more of that big city feeling, but also big city type jobs.
Next pro is that there is a lot more options for higher end communities and more luxurious neighborhoods.
Yeah, some of them that would stand out, especially on the newer side of things, would be like Artistry. They had some gorgeous homes there on the east end of Sarasota. But then also, you know, you can talk about going towards the downtown and then some of these high-end luxury condos. Now, just to make it clear, there is options like that in Venice as well. So, you know, maybe you say, I want the luxury, but oh, Venice doesn't have, no, Venice has that, you know what I mean? So it's just a matter of kind of figuring out what area would be a better fit for you. And then, okay, now you find the luxury in that area, but they both have options, but Sarasota just has more.
And it is a bigger city, so that's why it has more as well.
Next pro, I think, for Sarasota over Venice, and Venice, again, has a level of this, but it doesn't hit quite the same, is there's more ways to live and options of types of living in Sarasota. So both of them, you're going to have a few areas that have almost like, you know, country feels to them, and you can get a big lot. Both of them are going to have the gated communities, and both of them are going to have some condos and things like that, and townhomes and villas. But Sarasota is going to have more of those like big city feeling type, you know, options as far as more townhomes, more, you know, condos in really big buildings where you can go to the bottom floor and have a restaurant there. You know, there's a little bit of that kind of stuff in Venice Island, not so much where it's the main floor and then you're living above it, but you can maybe live in a condo that's a couple buildings down from the downtown. But there's just more of that urban lifestyle option in Sarasota.
And also having grocery stores available in the downtown area. There's a new Sprouts coming where the Sprouts is going to be on the first level, and then everything else is condos, which we think it's pretty cool, you know, just walking downstairs and grabbing groceries. But there's also a Whole Foods market in downtown Sarasota. So for, you know, everyone that lives in a condo or a townhome in downtown Sarasota, they're able to either walk or drive, but it'll be a very short distance to get to the grocery store.
Yeah, and as far as Venice goes, on Venice Island, you do have a Publix there. That's probably, for most people, golf cart friendly. Yeah. But walkable, you'd have to be in the right location. It's going to be, you know, less units that are really close to that. Whereas with Sarasota, since they're built up, the likelihood of being really close to something, shopping, restaurant, dining, and of course, grocery store wise, is a little bit higher. Again, though, living in that downtown area is going to bring your price point up.
Yes. Next pro is Sarasota has the world-class beach, Siesta Key Beach, which is amazing. It is a beautiful beach. There is a huge sandy area where, you know, you can set up for the day, and there's also a little like restaurant that you can go and order food, and you can either eat there like by the sun deck, or you can bring it down to the beach. And the beach in Sarasota, there is no drop off like in Venice. We mentioned before, there is a drop off where, you know, water can be down to your belly, but in Sarasota there is no drop off, which is pretty cool. And the water there is just so beautiful, turquoise water. The sand, it's almost like powdered sugar is how we describe it, just because of how fine it is and how it like sparkles in a sunny day. Yeah,
it's definitely stands out as a very unique beach, and just the sheer amount of space that the sand covers is, I can't think of another beach I've seen that covers that much area. I mean, a lot of people are going to tend to cluster towards the water, but I mean, there's more than enough room to keep coming back before you get anywhere near the parking lot. So just a sight to behold on that side of things. And just like Haiti said, with the gradual drop off, I think a lot of people just that aren't good swimmers, or like for kids, it's just ideal for that, because there's less risk of all of a sudden someone unexpectedly ending up with their head underwater. You know, it's going to take a long walk out to make that happen.
And now for the cons, Sarasota does have a higher cost of living because it is a bigger city. So housing is going to cost a little more, and taxes are going to be a little more expensive, but also restaurants like dining out, it's going to be a little higher as well. Yeah,
not dramatically on the food and dining, but a little bit more. It can add up. Yes. But, you know, again, you're talking about differences of, you know, access is kind of what you're paying for with Sarasota too. You know, just access to more stuff, more things to do, and more high-end options as well. So, you know, it's just a matter of what kind of lifestyle do you like, and, you know, what are you willing to pay to get that lifestyle. You know, I think the big way of looking at it would be like Sarasota, and then Venice is almost like Sarasota light. In a way, I think would be a fair way of putting it. But again, there are just the differences in the feel and the vibe, because Venice has a little bit more of that quiet city. So there is that change.
Con number 2 is that there is more traffic and tourists in Sarasota. So it's going to feel a little busier, a little more hectic, especially during snowbird season when we have all the snowbirds coming down. You, on top of that, have the tourists. It can get pretty busy.
Yeah, and on top of that, you add in all the people that live there, and then you get to some of the rush hours. There are some roads that will get pretty backed up. You're not really going to get that too much in Venice. I'd say the worst of it is there's certain lights in Venice where the light will turn green and you won't get through because there's so much traffic, and then by the next light you'll almost always get through. That's probably about the worst of the backups you're going to see in Venice. Whereas Sarasota, traffic in some roads like on Tamiami Trail and some of the busier parts, you're going to be at a dead stop in season. Again, we're talking winter here. This isn't year round, but and rush hour time. So this isn't all the time in winter either, for that matter. But there'll be times where you're basically moving 5 miles an hour and then you stop and then you wait, and it's not really you're not in the context of, can I get through on 2 green lights, because you're not even sure how many times the light went green or where the light is. So just to put some things in perspective for that. But there are other roads and options and ways to get through the city that you can avoid some of that traffic as well. So once you get to know the area, there's some other ways to get around.
The next con is it is a faster paced lifestyle because of what we just mentioned: more tourists, more snowbirds, more people living in the area. So that brings in a lot more traffic. So your lifestyle there is going to be a little more hectic.
Yeah, and a little bit busier in the stores, I would say, to some degree. But at the same time, Venice's stores can get kind of busy, and restaurants during especially the winter months. I would say there's a little more dramatic difference in Venice in the winter months, as far as, it gets super quiet in the summer, and the difference in how much busier it gets is more noticeable in the winter versus Sarasota. But also, to put things in context, for you, if you're like coming from New York City or like Chicago, you're gonna be like, oh, Sarasota? That's nothing.
Yeah.
But if you're coming from a small town, Sarasota you might find, appealing and enthralling because it's this kind of more of a city feel, but it also might bring with that for you, a little more congestion and traffic and people that you're not used to. So it just depends on your perspective and your perception from where you're coming from, and also maybe if you just want that change of pace.
Yes, and I would say Sarasota, it's a good city for someone coming from a small town to, you want something to do, but you don't want like a crazy city like Miami, where it's crazy busy. I think Sarasota is a great option because it's busier, it's a bigger city, but it doesn't feel as hectic, and it doesn't feel like it's not as scary to get on the and drive around because of that. I
think a good analogy would be like Siesta Key Beach. If you want to get into the big city, but you don't want to take the plunge, you just want to gradually get in there and have something, kind of like a medium city, like a big city light.
Sarasota.
It's like Siesta Key Beach.
So which city is a better fit for you? Let us know in the comments below.
And if you want to move to either of the cities, make sure to call, text, or email our team at 941-221-1897. We have a lot of people move to the area, and we would love to help you too.
Thanks for watching, and
live breezy.